Right.
I spent some time on building this small example for you guys. We'll see that. Let's just start recording. Okay, welcome all to the 53rd edition of our BC Open Discussion. As discussed last week, we'll be talking specifically about upgrade code units. And if you don't know how to utilize it, I'm hoping after this session you'll be able to understand how to utilize these code units. They're super powerful. I have written about it when they were first introduced in 2013 R2, but I actually wrote it about it in 2015, where they were more stable. So if you have to do something around changing something in your database, and we'll see what that means. After NAV 15, you should be looking into the upgrade codeunit because that's a great addition in the product back then. So let's go through the normals. If you are here for the first time, this is a place where you go and register every week. If you want to save the hassle of registering every week, as most of the attendees right now have done, you can just drop your name and email in the chat, and I'll make sure that going forward you get invited automatically and you don't have to register after that. So before we get into this, as we were talking about it, let's quickly see what are the topics that got selected for Dynamics Con, which is super cool, at least on Business Central track. So we have workflows and job queue. We have manufacturing and distribution by Insight Work, that's a partner. ISV, sorry. Custom document layout, that's a super cool feature in Business Central and Dynamics Nav if you don't know it. Sponsor session, this is top 10 tricks of BC with Microsoft Teams. I would surely encourage people to use it. And if you haven't seen it, this is one of the great addition in the product of using Microsoft Teams with Business Central. Then life hacks, I have attended Sean's past session. They are pretty cool. They are pretty detailed, sorry. So I prefer to watch them when they are happening rather than planning to watch the recordings later, because that never happens. It's hard to keep pace with things. So if you can do things when they are happening, that'll make more sense. There's a panel discussion about upgrade. Coding for performance. We have talked something about it in BC Open Discussion, but I would like to see what happens in V2 because Thomas have presented coding for performance in past. Let's see what has been changed in V2 on that. Transform your account receivable process. Okay, Power Automate. That's a cool thing if you are a NAV developer and transition from a NAV developer to a Business Central developer. This is a good session to attend because that will open up your mind not to think that every solution needs to be coded. Because in this modern world, there are ways to do things with less or low code. And that's where Power Automate fits into this domain. So if you think like me, like I always think that everything needs to be coded, and that's because I have been in NAV for last 10 years or so. And then surely I don't attend this session, understand how Power Automate can add value to Business Central. And I'm pretty sure Mary will be explaining some demos around it. Power Platform again by one of the MVP from New Zealand. Then we have mentorship versus sponsorship. Next gen of Business Central application community. That's a good one to attend. Docker's basic. Rishikesh, you wanted to learn about it. Taubis have automated so many things in Dockers. So go ahead, surely attend this. This is super cool if you are on one of the member who manages a team. I would like to attend and understand how Eric does it. He's even talking about customer development, and if you are not aware about it, with this modern platform, AL programming language, we need to working together with our customer if they have developers in house, and we all should be coding in one source control. So if you have no idea about it, go ahead, attend it. Eric will be surely sharing great insights on it. Mine is, you might have heard most of it. I don't know. I might think something new about it. Let's see what happens. Tanya is presenting. She's here. She'll be talking about report extension. We haven't talked about it because I haven't explored it much. So I'd be keen and interested to see what Tanya comes up with report extension in Business Central. And then it's time to move to OAuth. So if you haven't noticed, Business Central, when you go into your Business Central environment on users page, the web service key authentication is going away, and that will be replaced with OAuth. And who other than Adrian can talk to you about OAuth? We have done so many sessions about it in the past also, and there are good amount of articles that we have around OAuth. So super important for developers to understand it, because this is the only way that authentications will work in Business Central World. So good topic, good session titles to attend. If you are not registered, go ahead and register, and then we all will be there to watch these sessions together. You can also see other tracks. I would be watching some Power Platform recordings later, or if I know something about one of the things that I have seen in Business Central, I might switch to Power Automates on that. But yeah, the tracks look good. I'm super excited about things.
You will have to go to the recording because, you know, on the first day of the Dynamics Con, September 20th, you've got Power Platform, the road to something, then workflows. Those two would overlap, 2 p.m. both. Can you actually view them both at the same time?
No, so you will have to decide which one you can do. As in, you can on two screen, but that doesn't make any sense because you can't get things out of it. So you'll have to pick your sessions and then maybe watch them in YouTube once they get available in YouTube.
Yeah.
So make your playlist which one you want to attend, right? That if you plan it, like I'll do it by this week or so. I'll add these different sessions which I want to attend in my calendar, so that I can decide where I want to go and which one I want to leave. Doing it at the time when it gets available online, it's very hard to switch between them. So plan which one looks okay. There will be details around it, what these guys are talking about and things. So it's good that you can add those into a calendar and then plan your day accordingly. That okay, on Monday I'll watch these 5 and like this. Okay. So that's more about Dynamics Con, and let's move to our upgrade code units that we're going to talk about. Now let's first understand, this is my style all the time, is why Microsoft needed to come with an upgrade code unit logic in the new modern world of NAV 15 and higher. So I don't know how many of you are aware about upgrades and all, but typically an old upgrade like from NAV 4 to 2009, or even NAV 3 to NAV 4. There were majorly two steps. We used to execute one step in the old version. There was a form you will run, it'll execute some code, and then we'll convert that database into the new version. We'll import objects, and then we'll run the step 2 in the new version, which typically is something like this. In old version, you'll get something like these objects. In a Microsoft DVD, there's an upgrade folder where you get objects like this. This is a US NAV 2009 object set, upgrade object set, which had a code unit all the time, which is upgrade NAV 2009 step 1. What step 1 used to do is used to move or set some fields which are no longer needed, so that they don't cause you trouble when you import the new version objects. And there, if you open this code, there was so much code into it, because there are things that get changed between these versions and all. Additionally, the step 1 was moving some data into these temp tables. And the reason behind it is that data either need to be manipulated in a different way or stored in a different set of tables than they were in the past version. So in step 1, Microsoft either clears out those fields in the old versions or move the data into these different temp tables which are there. Then in step 2, it moves the data. Sam.
So the data isn't going to be removed. Say the sales header would have like 2 less fields, and the 2 less fields in the old version of the Dynamics NAV were populated. If you upgrade, Business Central or NAV, what would happen to the 2 fields? They had data.
You are talking about the custom fields?
No, standard fields got removed from the old version and just removed into the new version. So the new version doesn't have 2 fields.
Right, and that's because let's understand it from the ownership perspective. I always bring this concept about ownership. When Microsoft is responsible for the base code or the base object set that we receive for every version, they need to decide, or they own that part of the code or set of tables and field, and decide what will be available in new versions and how the data will look in new versions, right? Okay. So like in this case, upgrade sales header, Microsoft thought that after NAV 2009, they don't need these fields. All these fields are not required on the sales header table. Is their decision. If your customer need it, you might copy that data into a 50,000 table, but it's a Microsoft field. You can't be changing the logic what Microsoft has written, at least in the upgrade part, because they own that piece and they understand what the schema is in the next version. As in, you can also see what's available in 2013 and 2015, but you can't add a field in Microsoft range, right? In a table, in a base Microsoft table, you can't add a field in Microsoft range. You can only add it into the 50,000 to 99,000 range with your license.
Yeah.
So if your customer, let's assume in this scenario, if your customer needs website code, let's assume, then before upgrade, if you notice that this field is going to be dropped, you'll have to move that data to your custom field and then go ahead with upgrade, because upgrade will set these to blank. And the reasoning of setting these to blanks is when you update the new version, when you import the new version objects, these fields will not be available. Wow. And you can't delete a field with data. So in this step 1, it is eliminating the data from the fields which are no longer required. Make sense?
It does, yeah.
Now in this step 2, what they are trying to do is they are trying to bring either that data back which they stored into the temp tables into a new structure, or they are trying to populate some new fields which are added into the new version of the product. Simple enough. They are bringing that data back into these tables where the data need to be tweaked. So initially in step 1, they either eliminated that data like this, or they move that data into these temp tables. Now in step 2, they are moving data back from these tables to actual tables so that the data is available into the new structure. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Now, back then, if you have done legacy upgrades, because not sales header, but posted documents, GL entries, and item ledger entries on any ledgers, there was huge data, and these steps were sometime taking 20 to 30 hours. I have seen these step 1 and 2 running for 20 to 30 hours. So it was not an optimal way to upgrade because it was taking a lot of time. And that's where Microsoft thought in NAV 2013 R2, where it was initially released, and it was not fully baked till 2015 to introduce an upgrade type code unit. Now let's understand what these code units are. So a upgrade code unit in 2015 till BC14 can do two things at the same time. If there is a table definition change, it can handle that within one code unit. So you don't actually need two steps to do an upgrade. It can just be done by writing all your upgrade logic in one single upgrade code unit, which does two major things. One, if there is a change in the table definition, which means if there are fields being removed, fields being changed, and I'm only talking about Microsoft at this point, or tables being removed or table design being changed. Let me give you an example. Item category product group changes. The product group was completely eliminated and the data from product group is moved to item category. When you upgrade to, let me be very clear about it, NAV 2017. That point, Microsoft eliminated that table called product group code and also the fields. So all that logic is written in one code unit called upgrade code unit, which can handle the changes in the table definition, where you modify, delete a field or a table from the database. And the same code unit can also handle the data migration logic for the multiple tables that you might have changed from one version to other version. Now, an upgrade code unit have three main parts, and only these three are the parts. One is check precondition. This step of check precondition, any code that you have written inside a procedure which is defined as check precondition will be executed in every company before the upgrade is run. So like a typical Microsoft scenario is you cannot start an upgrade until unless you either approved every approval request or rejected every approval request. So there is a check precondition to check is there any workflow still active before you start upgrade.
So that's a condition. No workflow entries should exist.
Yeah, workflow step instance should not be active.
Okay, I've got a question actually. Say that you get upgrades on per company. What would happen if you've got many companies? Would there be lock-in issues?
I'm coming there. The next type of,
sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. The next type of method or procedure in an upgrade code unit is called table sync setup. And this function is very important because it handles any type of table definition change. And we'll go deep into table sync setup because this is very important. And this is where when you try to import an object or change an object, you get a window where there are three options, now with validation, later, or force. So that's completely related to that. We'll come to that. And then there are two types of function. One is upgrade per company and another is upgrade per database. Back till 2009, if you had 30 companies, you had to run step 1 and step 2 in every company by switching them manually. You run step 1 on company 1, then you switch to company 2, run step 1, 3, 4, 5, and every company you have to do it. And same for step 2. With these two different functions, the upgrade code unit is able to understand that any code that is written inside this type of method or function will be run for every company in the database. And if a function or if a set of code is written inside upgrade per database, that will run once for the whole database. So that means if you have a table which is not set to data per company, yes, then you will write it here. Oh, sorry, then you will write it here. If it is data per company, then you will write it here. And we'll see an example of it. Now, While you are writing upgrade code units, it's very important that you understand the table sync setup, because this is one of the most common thing that causes issues during an upgrade. So table sync setup have different modes which are available in Dynamics Nav. What are those? The first one is a check. Now what a check does is whenever you make a change in a table and it's a destructive change. So sync only gets initiated when there is a destructive change. Now what's a destructive change? Deleting a field, disabling a field, changing the data type of field, reducing the length of a field, changing data per company property on a table, changing primary key of a table, anything that will cause destruction to the data in the table. Only on those situations the table sync gets activated. If you're not making any destructive changes, there's no problem in table sync. So the first mode in table sync is called check. Now what check does? Check checks that the change that you are making, even if it is destructive, is it causing any data loss? And if it is not, then it applies that change into the table. Pretty simple. If there is a destructive change, then you get an error message. The second one, which you see on your import window screen, is called force. When you choose or when you write a code where you say table sync as force, it doesn't care about any destructive change. It directly deletes that data which will be impacted by the change that you made on your table. There are two additional sync setups which are available in Dynamics Nav. One is called as copy, and this is where we spend most of the time, maybe today, because this will also help you to think from your data transition to AL perspective, which is a type of copy. Now what copy does is, let's say you have a table where there are 100 fields. Out of them, you're planning to move a field or to change the data type of a field from, let's say, decimal to integer. Or you want to move that data from one table to other table. You don't want to lose that field data. And in those situations, you can copy just that selective data into a separate table itself. And then using Upgrade Codeunit, you can push that data back into the new table where you want it. And the last one is a move. So people who have been using Nav for quite a while, back in Nav 2009, you can just go into Object Designer and renumber a table, let's say 50,000 to 60,000 directly, and just move all the data and the whole table into 60,000. That is not possible with Dynamics Nav versions later on, after 2013 R2, because every change that you make goes through the service tier. So if you have to rename or renumber a table, let's say from 50,000 to 50,005, then you can actually use a move command to move the data from table A to table B, which should have the same structure as table A. Does that make sense?
It does. Would it also check whether the table's number already exists?
And we'll see that. So let's go into our database and start seeing some of the examples around it. So let me know when you can see my nav screen.
Yeah.
All right. So what I've done is I have already done a change in the database.
If you could zoom in, please. Can you actually?
How you zoom a nav screen? That's a good
You
question.
don't.
I don't know how you zoom that in.
Go to
Anybody knows?
View menu, maybe.
No. Zoom. Oh no,
Oh, there
that just goes into the object.
You can't.
Right. Thanks, Vijay. Okay.
Thank you.
So now what I've done is I have added a field in these three tables, and then I should also have a table on 50,000 or 60,000 somewhere. Okay, 50,000. Let me filter out V1. Here it is. On all these tables, I have added a custom field at the end called demo code. In this table, it is of size 20. In user setup, it is of size 30. In sales and receivable setup, there is a field size 20. And then there is a new table called demo table. All these have data in all three companies. Okay, so let me open it. This is some random data into this demo table, 5 records with some data into it. In the same way, if I open my client here and go into my customer table, I see that I have the demo code populated here. Let's switch to other company. I actually have 3 companies in this database. I come here, I also have the data here. Same on the user setup. I have some data here on all 3 companies. Now we will try to understand, because I have a V2 ready for this, where what will happen is on the customer table, the field size that I have, the custom field, I'm trying to shrink it to 10 in my next version. And let me open the comparison so that you can see it. Okay, here is a comparison. On table 18, I have a change where the demo code in V1 changes to code 10 in V2. So I'm reducing the field length, which is a destructive change. In the user setup, I'm changing the field length again from code 30 to code 20. On sales and receivable setup, I actually going to delete this field from this table. And there's a base Microsoft table where I'm going to add a new field, which is not available in V1, called is active. And last but not least, the 50,000 demo table switches to 60,000 with the same set of fields. So I'm trying to cover all the scenarios which we have just seen in this table sync mode. So let's try to write an upgrade code unit for the change that we are going to make. Let me see if there is anything on 50,000. Seems nothing. So let me save it as demo upgrade. And I guess I'm surely can increase the size here. Right. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to change the subtype of this code unit from normal to be an upgrade. There are different subtypes: normal, test, test runner, and upgrades. We'll change it to upgrade. Once we have changed it to upgrade, that becomes something that you cannot run from the object designer. That's the first rule. And now we will try to add the functions that we have seen in our earlier slide of different types. So I'll add a function, let's say check precondition. And then I'll add one table sync demo. And then I'll add upgrade customer. And then I have one table, which is data per company, which is upgrade code layouts. So if you see, all these tables by default became upgrade per company, which was not our intention. So we need to go back here and change the property of this function to be, this is check precondition, so it will be check precondition. This one will become table sync setup. This will remain as upgrade per company because customers are per company, and this one will become upgrade per database. As soon as I try to save it, I get an error message that one of the function that I have defined has an invalid signature, which is specifically about table sync setup. So there is a predefined signature of table sync setup type function, and it needs to have a parameter of type table sync setup table. So there is already a table in the system. It needs to be var, and I need to set it to table sync setup. Okay. Okay. Once done that, it should now be able to save for me. Let's save this. Now let's remember what kind of changes we are making, and we'll define our table sync setup based on the modes that we have learned in some time. Here, these different modes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to in my V2, I'm going to change the field length of my user setup field from 30 to 20. But as a developer, because I have written that code, I'm pretty sure that all the data that is in that demo field is actually of size 20. So when I reduce the length from 30 to 20, it should not be a destructive change, logically speaking, as a developer. So what I can do here is I'll have to create a global variable for my code unit called data upgrade management. And then inside this, there is a function called set table sync setup. Now, when you hover over this, and I'm not sure you guys can read it or not, it needs 3 parameters. The first one is table ID. The second one is upgrade table ID. And the third one is upgrade mode. So my current table ID for user setup is 91. I'm not going to upgrade this table data to anywhere else. And I want to use my table sync setup mode to be check. When I'm saying check, that means system will try to check whenever I'll make that destructive change, which means when I import my version 2, the system will try to check that the change that I'm doing, is it causing any data deletion? And in this case, it should not be, because I'm pretty sure that the data in this field in user setup table is actually of size 20. The field size is 30, but the data size is max to 20. So when I try to reduce that field size to 20, it'll check that can the data be accommodated in the new field length, and if yes, then it let you pass. Otherwise, it will warn you. Okay. Now for the other table that I have, which is my sales and receivable setup, I want to delete that field because as a developer, as I discussed with my customer, I don't need that field in my sales and receivable setup. So I can just go ahead and say that for sales and receivable setup, if you see any destructive change, don't worry about it. Go ahead and delete that because I'm sure as a developer that I don't need that. Now, in case of my customer table, I want to handle that data in a different way. In customer table, I want to make sure that the data that is there will actually be trimmed to size 10, because in my V2, the size of my field is 10, which is currently set to 20. So for customer table, I'll have to do a table sync setup of mode copy. Whenever I do a copy or a move, I need to specify the second parameter in this function. It will not warn me, but that's mandatory. In the same way, and I will set that table 50,000. I want to move it to 60,000. So I'll have a new table in my V2, and my mode will be not copy, it will be move. So all the data from 50,000 will move to 60,000. I'm still missing a table for my table 18 data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a table, and whenever you are creating an upgrade table, the logic is that it should share the same primary key of the base table. The primary key of this table is number, so I'll have to copy the number field and also my custom field, which is there. So I'll copy both these fields on the same IDs, and I'll create a new table called 50,001 temp customer. I'll copy those fields at the same ID with the same lengths, and the key I'll set it to same as it is for the base table. Now in this case, number is the primary key, so I'll set the number as the primary key. Okay, and I don't need any code here. So this is just an upgrade table, and I'll save it. Now the table is 50,001. I need to go back here and update my upgrade table ID, where I want to copy selected data to be 50,001. Now we'll come into this upgrade part later, but for the time being, I'll just comment this piece, and we will implement our version 2. I'm going to import my V2, which is going to change this table, remove the field from this table, so the version 1 goes away from here, and also add a field into this table, and then have a new table here, which I cannot create because the same table still exists with the same table. A table already exists with the same table name called demo table. Now pay attention to this, what I'm going to do right now. I have data in this table. We all have seen it, right? We have seen that there are 5 records in this table in each company, and there are some random data. And let me also open SQL here so that you get the clarity about it. I'm going to delete this table. And let me copy the name of this table so that we can then see it in SQL. And I'm going to delete this table. And this time I'm going to choose later. Changes are not validated or synchronized to the database. So when I say later, this table is deleted, but this table is actually only deleted from your development environment. If you go back into your database in SQL, the table still exists with data in it. So when you say later, anytime you import an object, your changes are not applied on the database. They are waiting for something to happen by you before you run a sync with validation. So now I have, yeah, go ahead.
Later is never committed to SQL Server.
Yeah, later does not commit your changes to SQL Server. That's a benefit of later, and we'll see what that benefit is. So now I'm going to import my V2, and I have some changes here. And because right now I don't want to make those changes in SQL, I'll choose later again. So when I choose later, I'll be able to see my V2 changes in my object designer, but I'll not be able to see them in SQL Server. So my V2 tables are here. and also my V2 updated field lengths will be here. So my customer will have a field reduction. Now it will be of size 10. In the same way, my user setup have size 20, which was 30 earlier. And this table has a new field. And if you remember, the sales and receivable setup is gone. And the table 60,000 is here. At this point, your SQL and your nav are not in sync. That's where your table sync comes into picture, which you either do from here or you either do it from PowerShell. It's up to you, right? Why you should be doing it from PowerShell? Because it will show you the relevant error message while you're trying to do this. So when I try to sync now, and say this is BC 140, and I say that I want to run the check mode. There are different modes available also on the sync. So when I do the check, it tries to implement your changes on SQL. It is not making those changes. It is just trying and seeing what kind of changes you have done. So let's see. On table 18, I'm trying to reduce the length of my 50,000 field. It tells me here very clearly. On table 91, I'm also trying to reduce the length. On table 311, I have removed a field. And table 50,000, I have deleted. Is that all what we did, right? Whenever you run a sync, system looks for every upgrade type code unit in your database and tries to check is there a sync method, and if yes, will execute that first and then will show you the error messages. So now let's go back to our upgrade code unit, which is set at 50,000, and try to enable this. When I try to enable this, and just for understanding's sake, let me change all these, or let me keep just this. So I'm saying that on 91, I have made a destructive change, I know, but at the same time, I also know that the data in the system should fit into the new field length. So just do a check on my 91. So now when I run my BC 140 sync, you will see one less error than the previous time. Table 18, 50,000 still there. 91, because there is a check which got passed, it didn't generated that message for you. Make sense? Because that condition validated that the data in that field is matching to the new length. So there will be no data deletion, even if I make that destructive change. Any questions?
But the field's size got reduced.
But the data in the field is still fitting in that new size. So if you have, and we'll see that, okay, which is the case in in this scenario 18. So if I do a check here, because in this case the data is actually 30 and the field length is 20, so I'll say, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, so can you tell me what I'm doing here? Now when I run a check, after doing a clear screen, it still tells me, because I'm running the check mode, right? So it still tells me that I find a sync statement, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay, so it's saying I'm not gonna worry about it because there is a sync statement. So let's do this. Let me change all to sync, all to check. This is 18. Let me change this to check also, and also this to be check. It seems hard in the beginning. It's super easy if you understand this logic. Now if I'm running it with mode check, it is only checking is there a sync code unit which handles it, and it says yes, there is a code unit behind the scene which have a definition for all the destructive changes that are being made in the database. So in the check mode, I don't care. So if I remove this and say the default mode is sync, run it in the sync mode, now it will verify that any type of change that you have written here is that validated against the change that you're doing. So when I run this sync mode, it'll give me an error and it'll give you the first error. Now it says the first error that I have seen is on the customer table because the data in that field cannot fit in that new length. It didn't give you an error for 91.
Yeah, because the data fits in.
Right. In 18, it doesn't fit in, so it gives you an error. In that situation, I want to move that data to my temp table to 50,001. If I replace this with 50,001, now this will give me error on this. Sales and receivable setup cannot be deleted because there is data in it. Is the first company. It'll keep on repeating every company as you keep going on it. So you need to be very sure what you're doing. So in this case, I'll go and I'll actually remove these two lines and put the actual lines here. Now I'm sure what I'm going to do. As soon as I run the sync, all these actions will get activated. 50,001 will get data, 60,000 will get data, and my SQL and my nav will be in synchronization as soon as I run my sync nav tenant. Okay.
Well, it's only trying it on Canada, Cronus. You've got 3 companies.
It will do it on all the companies. No worries. I'll show you. I'll show you data moving on all the companies.
Okay.
It showed you the first company because it said, if you read that correctly, it said, this is the first error that I saw. It doesn't tell you about all the errors. It said in one company I see it. I didn't went to the second company to check it because the first company had a problem. I showed you the first error. Make sense?
It does, yeah.
So now once we run the sync, the table 91 will have that field as it is with the reduced length, and that field will be available in SQL. And let's first look on SQL on user setup table. What is the length of that field? So when you look on the user setup table columns, the demo field, which is here, is 30. If you go in your database right now, your demo field length is 20, which is v2 length, but here is the v1 because the sync haven't happened yet. So it still says 30. All right. And the same behavior is for all the tables that are part of our upgrade solution that we're building right now. So it will check that any destructive changes for this. It will move the 50,000, the data of that field that you have selected in 50,001 table with the same field ID, and the data will move there for all 3 companies. In 311, it'll not care about the field that is being deleted or changed. It will force that change. And in this table, it will move data from 50,000, which is not available in your object designer, to the 60,000 table with the move. And then the complete sync will happen between your nav and your SQL database. So now let's run this. So when I run this and say yes, it's actually performing those steps automatically for each company, and the sync is completed. Now let's go back first to our SQL and see what happened to our demo code on this table. So if I refresh this, the demo code now is of size 20. Okay, let's go back to our object designer. And let's filter out V2. I should have data in 60,000 for all the companies. Okay, let's switch to other company and see the data there. We were on Canada, let's go to USA. So I'll change it here to options to my company being USA. Okay, and let's run this statement. Okay. I need to run it again, maybe. Okay, here it is. There is data on the USA company also. We also created a table to hold some data. Let's look at this. Let's have all the data from that field with the matching primary key. Now I'll take a pause here. Now think about it, what it is in your AL world. If you try to relate this to your AL word, this is your table extension. Your table extension also shares the same primary key of the main table, and then it have all the custom fields that you need. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. You have to explain it again.
Okay. So whenever you create a table extension using VS Code, right, it always takes the primary key of the main table and just have the custom fields around it. So let me walk you through around it. If you do a search for customer table, and I'm hoping there's an extension for the customer table, there is none. Let me see. I guess there is a extension. Let me see here. Extension management. Okay, there is image analyzer. Okay, let me see what the ID of this extension is, or any other good one. Sales and inventory forecast. I need one which will have a table. So let's see, this one may have table. So this seems the GUID for it. I'm hoping. Let me apply the GUID here. Contains this. Okay. No, that was not the GUID. Okay. View. App ID. Okay. Oh yeah. So what happens is whenever you create an extension, either in BC14 or BC SAS or irrespective of the version, let me copy the vendor from here so that we can see the difference. I just wanted a table name. Okay. So there is a Cronus Canada vendor, there is a Cronus USA vendor, but then there is this. Now what is this? This is a table extension specific to this particular extension called DOIT localization. And how I know it? Because this ID of this extension is also added into the table name. That's the simple rule how table extensions are built. If you look in this table, the primary key of this table is number, which we all know. In the same way, this table will also have the primary key same as of the parent table. And it will only have the new field that is required by this extension. Now think about if you have an extension on a vendor table or on a customer table as we had, which had 1 or 5 custom field that you needed for your customization. Eventually what will happen is a table like this will be created in SQL, which will have the same primary key as of the parent table, which is number, and which will have all the custom fields that you need. You might have 5 fields, you might have 10 fields in your table extension. So this is exactly same schema as your table extension in the modern world. Does that make sense now?
It does, yeah. So the same primary key to the parent and the new customized fields would be added as well.
Right. So when you're trying to move from your CAL to AL going forward, you can actually take this approach by writing an upgrade code unit to move all your custom field data into a temporary table like this. By just adding one statement to copy that data into a table. And you'll have to make a destructive change on the main table, and the destructive change will be deletion of all custom field. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Now we are running out of time, but if you guys want to stay, I just want to complete this, which is this part, because I'll not be available for next 2 weeks. I have some planned activities next 2 weeks. So if you guys don't want, sorry,
are you going on vacation?
Not exactly. There are some
That's fine,
family members visiting, so yeah, I'll be busy with them.
Okay.
Okay. So if you guys don't mind, can I continue from here?
Yeah, please, go on.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Now, once you have done this, this is not just an upgrade part. This was just the sync part. So you have synchronized the new change that you wanted to make, and that has been applied. And these are the 4 different types of changes, as I said earlier, which you can do on your database. So you have done those changes, but now we don't want this table data into 50,000. One, we want this to be moved back to customer. For that, we'll have to use the second set of our upgrade code unit, which is upgrade functions. And as I explained earlier, there are 2 types of these functions which have their own properties. One runs per company and one runs once for a database. They don't repeat per company once. Okay. So in this case, our customer table is data per company. Every company has customers. So I can move that data back based on the logic that I want to write so that the data moves back. So let's go back to our code unit. And in this case, I have this upgrade customer. So what I can do here is I can have my local variable, let's say record 50,001, which is my temp customer. And then I also have a customer table. What I'm going to say is if my temp customer is empty, then do nothing. Don't waste your time here. If it exists, then repeat the same CAL code that you have written all these years. Temp customer.next is equals to 0. And then you move it back to customer.get, temp customer.number, and then customer.democode is equals to copy string from my temp customer.democode to from 1 to length of my customer.democode. What will happen with this? It will move the data back to customer with only first 10 characters, because that's what I'm assuming is my situation. And you can have different situations. You might want to move it to some other table. You can use the same logic, whatever you want on that. Now this method, because it's tagged as upgrade permission, will run for each and every company, and we'll see that. Then I've already added a field on my report layout table, which is my custom report layout table. I have added field is active. And during the upgrade, I want to initialize this field. I don't want users to go ahead, or I have written code for the new report layouts that will be built. But for the existing one, I want to make sure that that variable is set. So you can also achieve it using the upgrade code units again. What I'm going to do here is I'm also going to create a record for the same table. And I want to set it if this active logic is based on if it is selected on a report selection somewhere. So the same logic, if customer report selection is empty, then exit. And then also you can repeat it until the customer report selection is equal to 0. Now, because I have to make change within the same variable, I prefer, as in there is find set true and false, I would prefer to have a second variable for this. And I'll say first check, is this on report selection or not? Based on the report ID. If it finds anything on that, then it updates that variable using the new one. What is the primary key of this? Code. Okay. And then if it is used anywhere in my report selection, I want to make it as active, which is my new field, to be true. And then this is my upgrade report layout. Okay. Now this method will run once because this table is not per company. Check here, it is data per company, no. Whereas my customer table is data per company, yes. So now this function will only get triggered when you run the sync. These methods will get triggered when you run the upgrade. Oh, sorry, where it is. Okay, so now let's run the upgrade. You can either do it from here or you can do it from PowerShell. It's up to you. You go to data upgrade, you choose a start. You need to be on elevated, okay, and you have chosen to start database. How many tables are there? It may take time and all. Yes. Then you run it on parallel or serial. I prefer to run it serial, which means one company and then other company and then other company. You can also run it in parallel mode if you want. Click OK. Oh, we have a client open, so the client should not be open. Okay. Now let's go ahead and run the data upgrade. Yes, yes, serial. Okay. It'll start running, and it is actually running on my second screen, and there was a problem. Let me drag it to my, how I drag this. Okay. So there was a problem and the data upgrade kind of stopped. Let's see. So if there is an issue in the data upgrade, you can always come here and check what happened using get nav data upgrade. You can check error only and it'll show you what the error was. It says I cannot do this because there was no blank customer. Okay, that means I have done something wrong here on the customer. I didn't do a find first and set. Customer table can be empty on a company. Okay, that sounds good. So how I make sure that it runs on this window? I don't know. Let me try. Data upgrade, start. Yes. Oh, there is already an upgrade started, so I'll have to stop this. And I'll run the data upgrade again. Serial. Okay. Actually coming on my second screen right now, progress is 0. Now it turned to 100. I can't show you that window for some weird reasons because it's stuck between two screens, but okay. Now let me show you how you see where the upgrade process is if it is taking time. If you want to see where the status is or what the progress is, you can always come here and you can say server instance name and show you what the progress is, which right now is completed. But if you want after completed what actually happened during upgrade, you can come to this window on the detailed. Don't run this, copy this, paste it here, and then pipe this output to a grid view. When you pipe this output to a grid view, it opens a grid for you like this, which tells you which function ran on which company for how long, which is here. The check precondition ran on Cronus Canada, Cronus Mexico, as well as on Cronus USA in sequential order because I said I want to run it serially. Then upgrade customer ran for these many milliseconds. Upgrade customer ran here for these many milliseconds. Upgrade customer ran here for these milliseconds on all three companies one by one. And then at the end, it ran the upgrade report layout, which is data per company blank. You see other steps. Those are company initialization, code unit 2 and all. If you don't want to do it, you should be running your data upgrade from PowerShell, which is using start data up. There's something called data upgrade. And then here, there are different options available, which are not available in CAL, which is, let's zoom this in, which talks about what should happen, skip company initialization, so it will not run code unit 2. Skip if that method, if the database is already upgraded. If there is a user session enabled, then do you want to skip it or not? So there are more parameters if you want to run the data upgrade here. Once the data upgrade step is over, now let's quickly check what happened to the data in our tables. On my customer table, I have reduced that field to be size 10 instead of 20. So it should actually have the data, but with the reduced length of, and I don't show that field, I should be showing that field here. Yes. So now the data is there, but the data is reduced to the new size. Same in this company and same for other companies. If I switch from Cronus USA to the Mexico, go to my customer table, the data is there. Let's check the report layout selection, which is my custom report layout, which is my new field that I added. Not this one. Report layout, custom report layout. I don't see that field, so let me run that table so that I can see that field. So this would have set that field on any report which is being used somewhere in a report selection. So like job code report is used nowhere, but I'm pretty sure the 1183 is used in the report selection, and same for these different layouts which are used. So it set that field. Now, this is more or less on the CL upgrade code unit, but now you can be creative about what you can do with these code units. But let me give you an example what I did on this code unit before this session. You have seen all that data which I have generated as you're seeing it, and I didn't created that data. I created a load data code unit. 50,000. Okay. And I created a function, just named it as upgrade customer, just to make sure that. And I created all this data using this code unit, saying get a random string of size 20 from sales and receivable setup, get a random string of size 20. Same for user setup, and also looped in 5 records on that demo table with size 20 and 50, which is the length of those fields respectively, which is this function. The only thing that you need to remember while working with upgrade code units is once what you want to achieve, once you have achieved this, make sure to delete these upgrade code units. And this is very important because any type of destructive change on this table going forward, if this code unit will exist, will be forced without even asking to use it. If you go back to Microsoft steps, they always say to delete all the upgrade toolkit objects. And this is one of the most common issues that you'll see in some scenarios where there is a force on any specific table, and if somebody deletes a field, he doesn't get a warning and it gets deleted because there is a table sync defined as force for that. Always start with, when you're making these kind of changes, with nothing here, and run your sync from PowerShell to see what kind of changes you are making, so that you are sure that the code that you are writing is specific to the fields that you are trying to change. So the way we did it today, where I disabled everything here and then I ran the sync to see what kind of changes system is telling me, and based on that I wrote my upgrade code. That's the style you should always follow if you're making a destructive change. And at the end, delete this always. So go ahead and delete these objects as soon as you're done. Otherwise, it will cause harm to your customer. Every upgrade code unit, these two are of type upgrade. They will be run whenever I do a tools data upgrade. Always. All upgrade code units are ran at that time, in the order of the numbers that they are being placed, 50,000 and then 50,001. Use them whenever you need it. I use them so frequently for so many things, but don't keep them once you are done with whatever you are trying to do. On a multi-company environment or a customer who have multiple companies, it's super useful to do or to achieve various things that you want to do using upgrade code units. Any questions at this point on this?
No.
Okay. I'm not going deep into it, but there's a different flavor of AL upgrade code units. And as we all know, that you cannot make destructive changes till now in Business Central AL environment. So there is no sync option in upgrade code units in AL. And if everybody want, we might talk about it in the next meeting someday. But in upgrade code units in AL, all these functions which you have talked about always come in pairs, and then there is a new function called onValidate upgrade, which is used to check was the upgrade successful or not. But these functions are run with some different code styles rather than writing a code in CAL, because it's an extension. We need to be very sure how we are writing these codes. But there is no sync in the AL upgrade code unit, but the check precondition on data per company per database will remain as it is. The coding style will be a little bit different in extension, because that's a different environment altogether. And then there is a new trigger on validate upgrade per company. So maybe if it makes sense, let me know. We'll talk about AL upgrade code units in one of the future sessions. Okay, anything else, guys? Any questions?
Nope, it was clear enough.
Okay, so I hope you'll be able to utilize this session somewhere in things that you're doing. As I said, I use upgrade code units for so many things, not just for upgrades. But they are pretty useful. Try to use them. They're pretty handy in doing certain things. And you can think about scenarios where you can use them. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we are good for the day. And as I said, I might not be able to schedule it for next 2 weeks or so. I'm not sure yet, but those of you are default attendees will get an invite whatever week I do it, either next week or not. Others will get a registration page for sure or not.
Yeah, hi Saurav.
Hey man.
Thanks for this great session. I was asking that in starting you were showing some topics of Power BI and Power Apps. So where I can find the link for those, or where I have to do the registration?
That's dynamicscon.com. So just go to dynamicscon.com You can sign up there, and it's happening on September 20 to 23rd,
Okay.
4 hours each day.
Okay.
It's actually on the first day. Power Platform, the road of the something. Yeah, it's on the first day. The rows
Yeah.
of the data sources.
Yeah. The roast of the data. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anyone?
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Saurabh. The session was wonderful.
Thank
and
you.
informative.
Yeah, much appreciated. So enjoy your family.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you, man.